What made me think I could do stand-up? Nothing. I didn't think that I could. I wanted to do it, so I did it. No part of me was like, oh yeah, you'd be good at this. It was just that I out of desperation to do something.
The first time I ever saw stand-up was on Carson, and I was watching with my dad. It was just a guy that told a joke, and my dad was laughing his head off. And I said, what is he doing? Is that, like, what does he do? And they were like, oh, that's a stand-up comedian. So I went upstairs and I wrote my first joke, and I came downstairs and I said, I have a joke for you. What can a guy in a wheelchair never be? A stand-up comedian. And my parents were like, oh, Erica, it's really not polite.
I was in drama class and we were doing monologues. And there was a girl in my class that I had the biggest crush on in the world. And I decided that my whole life needed to revolve around making sure this girl liked me. And so a kid in the class did like a George Carlin monologue and destroyed. The class loved him, and I remember specifically watching this girl in the class, loving it. And I was like, well, this is what I gotta do now if I want ladies.
It's pretty arrogant to think that you can do stand-up comedy. That's probably why. Maybe I'm a little arrogant. I just got into stand-up. I just went up once, and I loved it. I fell in love with like everyone paying attention to me, which is something a quality stand-up comedian has, the need for attention, I guess.
My top tip for aspiring comics is to watch everything, especially amateur comedy. See what's going on in your town, go out to the shows, go out to open mic nights, and really pay attention. And so you can just soak it up and see what other people are doing.
Definitely hang out at shows, watch shows, talk to comics that are ahead of you. Don't think you're all that at all, ever, in this business, because there's always somebody that's better than you, and there's always something you can learn. But I think just, comics will respect you more if they see you out at shows, even if you don't get to get on every show.
You have to be a jack of all trades. You have to know like marketing, graphic design, you have to know writing, you have to know writing screenplays, editing. There's so much you have to do, especially nowadays. And I think that I was not prepared for the amount of skills that I would have to acquire.
Don't ask people to watch your show. Like, don't go up to headliners and say, can you watch? They'll come and tell you when you're doing a good job. Keep showing up, do a good job, be humble, tip the waitstaff.
My top tip for aspiring comedians is just do it. Do it as much as you can. That's all there is to it. There ain't nothing to it but to do it, you know what I mean? It's one of those things.
Just remember that you're lucky to be able to do it, and really lucky to have met someone that knew how to get started, or that you had the guts to do it, or that you stumbled onto that podcast, or you found out about it somehow. So I'd say just remember that and keep going if you want it.
There's just no feeling like performing stand-up. Once you've kind of got hooked on it, then there's no other way to get that fix. The feeling of just throwing an idea out to an audience and then getting that laughter response back, nothing like it.
I love it. I love being on stage. I love taking a new joke and making it into something. When you have a new idea that isn't a joke yet, and you turn it into a joke, that moment when it's like turning the key on the ignition of something, of a joke. What has ignitions? Cars. I'm not very good at analogies, but I am pretty good at jokes.
I love it. I mean, it's when you find something you love to do, when it's something you really want to do, and if it becomes part of your identity, it's not like a coat you take off at the end of the day. It's just something. It's your skin. It's what it is all the time. So it's never a question of whether I'm going to be a comic for the rest of my life. It's how can I make that the best I can do with what I have.